so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on some ankle mobility.
Okay.
Now the other thing is there's going to be a lot of different things that are involved, so we want to go for things that are like the bang for your buck is the best, right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have you just go ahead down into a half kneel. Okay. So anytime we say half kneel, it's one knee down, 1 foot up. All right, so ideally what we're trying to work here is we're really trying to get the ankle, but what we're also going to do is hip hinging is very important in the things that we do in the weight room and in the sport of baseball. So we're going to get an opportunity to solidify and the technique of getting a hip hinge, or which basically looks like the beginning of an RDL.
Gotcha.
Okay? So all I want you to do is we're going to hip hinge back.
Okay.
So you're going to go ahead and shift your weight back, and then as you're going to go ahead and push through, and we're going to use 3 different directions here. So we're talking about knee is going to go outside baby toe, knee over big toe, and then knee inside big toe. So what I want you to do first is stay up nice and tall.
Okay.
You're going to hip hinge back. Go ahead, shift back. Now as I push through, I want your chest to come up, all the way up so we're kneeling high. Get your chest up higher and just push through. So you're going to go 5 reps outside little toe, right back into that hip hinge. So we just call these ankle pulses. So what I want you to do, if you watch me, is get that hip hinge first, and then as I push through, I want my head, chest stacked right over my pelvis. So I don't want to get into that lumbar arch, okay? So it's going to be a hip hinge first. You can put your hands on your leg here. So you're going to push so that knee goes inside big toe. And ideally, I want my knee, if I'm pushing out as far as I can, my knee's right about at the end of my foot. Okay, so if my knee gets way out in front of my foot, just move that knee out a little bit more, and you can put your hands here. So it's going to be a hip hinge. Okay, I'm basically floating, pushing that inside big toe, so we're getting that inside part of our ankle. And then I go ahead and shift back again into that RDL or that hip hinge, shift through. So we call these 3-way ankle pulse. All right, so I just pulse in. I'm going to do 5 inside big toe. Okay, then I'm going to do 5 straight over the middle of my foot. Then I'm going to do 5 outside my baby toe.
Gotcha.
All right, so good hip hinge first.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, I don't need you to, we don't be so far down. So it's not a flexion with my upper torso, it's through my hips.
Stay
up.
So
if I was standing up, it's just simply this.
Gotcha.
All right?
Yep.
So it's hinge back first. There you go. Now push through.
Rock
this
forward.
stays right over your pelvis. You're going to go ahead right back into that hinge. Good. So 5 inside, 5 straight over, and 5 baby toe.
Got it.
So we're getting a lot of things out of this, right? We're getting ankle here. We're teaching the hip hinge.
Yep.
You're getting some adductor. And then what we're going to do is when you push through, I want to use this backside glute as a driver.
Got it.
So it's what's called reciprocal inhibition. All right? So the harder I squeeze my glute, the more that front side will relax.
That makes sense.
So when you push through, I want you to think really squeezing that glute as hard as you can, and that's going to help that hip flexor relax.
You can feel it.
Yeah,
Makes a big
so we're
difference.
getting ankle out of it, we're getting adductor,
Yeah.
we're also relaxing that hip flexor, and we're learning to use our glutes as a driver.
That's awesome.
Okay, so we did 5 to 10 reps each way.
Yeah.
Then we would go ahead and switch legs.
Awesome.
And then do the same thing on the other side.
Yeah. That's
All right?
awesome. Yeah.
So now from there, I'm going to have you switch legs just so we don't cash out your one side. All right. So now what we're going to do is using that theory of reciprocal inhibition. Now we're going to start to work a little bit on the thoracic spine. So when we talk about thoracic spine, basically we're talking about middle of the chest, belly button area. Okay. Again, baseball, any rotary sport, if you can't rotate through your thoracic spine, you're going to have a real hard time playing the sport. So with that same idea, we're in that half kneeling position, still using the glute as a driver, okay? What I'm going to do is we're going to, again, reinforce that good hip hinge. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push through, and I'm just going to reach up as high as I can, all right? So I don't want you to be through that lumbar spine, but I want you to think I'm trying to make my spine as long as I can make it.
Got it.
All right, so you're just going to hold that for a couple seconds, bring your arms back down, right into that hip hinge. Push through, squeeze that, and you can palpate that glute, right? We don't want to have a jello glute, right? So you're just going to hold that for a couple seconds, go ahead, bring it down, shift right back into that hip hinge. Now you got it, good job.
Feels good to lengthen out the spine. You can really feel that.
Absolutely. So a lot of
loosening
times you'll
everything
get
up.
people that'll do that lumbar extension. We want to limit that lumbar extension.
Yeah.
We want to really work through that middle part of the spine.
Oh, I can feel it right
Yep.
now. It's going to work.
Okay, so we do, again, 5 to 10 reps there.
Yeah.
The next one we're going to do is called, so we call that an I driver, right? It just looks like the letter I.
Yeah.
The next one we would call a T driver.
Okay.
T stands for thoracic spine, but it also looks like the letter T. Okay?
Gotcha.
So same concept. We're doing the same deal. Okay, you've got that hip hinge. Again, I'm using that glute as a driver. I'm driving through. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take, so my left knee is up. I'm going to take my right hand, and I'm going to put some pressure on that knee. So I'm trying to pull the knee in. That glute is resisting it.
It's
So we're
activated,
getting a
yeah.
little bit of that activation out of that
Yeah.
glute. So again, it's going to be hip hinge, push, hand here. Now my left hand, I'm going to get that thoracic rotation, and my eyes are going to follow my hand all the way. All right, so you can get a little forced range of motion with that hand on that knee as I'm resisting.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to go ahead and bring it back. Hip hinge, squeezing that glute, hook that hand, get that thoracic rotation, bring it right back.
Feels great to separate, and we talk about that all the time with hitting, pitching.
Sure.
Separation's a huge part of this game.
Yep. And again, anything like when you go into a half kneel and you start taking segments away
Yeah.
from when I'm standing, there's a lot less what I call leaks.
Yeah.
Right? So now I can't like make weird adjustments with my knees or whatever. I'm limited as far as what I can adjust.
Definitely.
And I'm going to go through 2 more that we will add to the I driver. So those are 2 that we would do kind of separately.
Okay.
But if I were to give you like a little bit of a sequence, okay? So what we would do is, again, I would go through, always that hip hinge first. So when I talk to a kid about RDLs, if
Yeah.
I've never worked with you before and I say hip hinge, you've already heard me say it.
Yep,
And I've already
exactly.
showed you what it looks like.
That's a hard
okay?
concept for people to understand as well.
Yeah, I mean, the earlier you can get your verbiage and your coaching cues in, the better off you're going to be
Yeah.
in the long run. So basically, a little sequence that we would do would be our I driver, which you just did. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I could add that thoracic, the T spine. Okay. And the last one we would add in would be hip hinge. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my I driver. I'm going to drop a hand, okay, to the leg that's in front of me. This hand I want to try to touch the ground, and the other hand I'm trying to touch the ceiling.
Got it.
So it's a bit of a side bend. You're going to really feel that up that hip flexor, okay, all the way down through that quad, all the way down to that knee. So why don't you try that one?
Drop back.
Yep,
the
so I go hip hinge first.
There you go, both hands up.
Reaching as high as I can, again, making that spine really long. I'm going to drop my front leg side arm.
Yep.
And then I'm going to try to touch the ceiling and touch the floor.
Oh, it's a great
There
stretch.
you go right there.
Yeah.
So all through that lat, all the way down that hip flexor, all the way down through your knee.
I mean, that is really intense.
Yep.
It
So
feels
then you're going
great.
to go ahead and drop your arms
Yep.
right back into that hip hinge every time. So we're
Yeah.
reinforcing the hip hinge.
Yep.
Okay. Learning how to work a little bit through that thoracic area, and then get that good side bend. So this would be something where the guys would come in, we'd go through our general warm up. Then we might do, again, like if we're going to squat or it's a heavy leg day, we'd get a little more specific on our warm up.
Yeah.
And then we'd start to throw some of this mobility stuff in. And again, like if my ankles don't work right,
Yeah.
then your knee has to compensate, your hip has to compensate, your opposite side low back, you run into all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
So we want to try to work from the ground up so that these kids are ready to go ahead and do their thing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. I know just doing that feels
I
fantastic.
feel like $100, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Jason, thanks again for your time, for the awesome advice for these guys. I think you gave a ton of coaching points and tips that they can follow at home. And we appreciate your time. Thank you for having us here today.
Hey, thanks, Josh.
And,
I really appreciate you guys coming, and start training, no doubt.
No doubt.
Oh, get out of here.
I love it.